Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvarei. L'chaim, l'chaim, as always, we begin with a l'chaim, especially tonight is a very special night. It's Chaf Hei Adar, Sheni, the birthday of the Rebbetzin Chayamushka. The Rebbe says all the brachas come from there. Koi Sevarach was B'nai Yisrael. It's the birthday of the world, because according to the opinion that the world was created in Nissan, that means the 25th of Adar. And it's the birthday of birthdays. It's today that the Rebbe established the mivtza of birthdays, that every person on their birthday should make a fabrengen, should say l'chaim together with friends, and that everyone should give each other brachas. And so, as that special occasion, I want to again use this opportunity of the chsidische fabrengen that can accomplish more than even Malach Michal, to give everyone brachas. May everyone be blessed in everything you want, in everything you need. B'toi v'nire v'nigle, any things, whether it's money and riches, whether it's children, whether it's shidduchim, whether it's health, everything from Aleph till Taf and everything in between. Koisev Baruch, all the brachas should come from here. My father-in-law Ephraim ben Sheinei should have a complete and swift refuah shalema, and for Mordechai Dov ber HaKoyen ben Chana, he should have a refuah shalema, a complete refuah shalema, and everyone else should have everything they need. And most importantly, the one bracha, which includes all the brachas, there should be the Isgalus of Melech HaMashiach immediately. He should take us out of Galus to the third base of Mikdash, and bring us all to the Gula, Mitis, Vashleimot, the ultimate bracha, L'chaim, L'chaim. So today, as we said, is a very special day. It's the birthday of the Rebbetzin, and we'll try and talk a little bit more about that idea, specifically about birthdays. But firstly, being Chaf Hei Adar, it has a connection of two things. This Shabbos, we're going to read, HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem Rosh Chodashim. This month, which begins on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, this Tuesday, which is also the beginning of the Parsha, Vahi Bayom Hashmini, the 8th day, which was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, the day which is filled with, like the Rashi says, 10 crowns that this day took and received. This month is Rosh Chodashim for the Jewish people who are beyond nature, who are not confined in the confines of nature. It's this month which is the supernatural month. And yet at the same time, tonight is Chaf Hei Adar, which is still Adar, which is still the idea of the confines of nature. There's two aspects in the world, and like there's two aspects in the Torah. We're told the Torah should have begun with HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem. Instead, it began with Bereshis Bara Elikim. For what reason? Because Koyach Maisov Higid Liam Meilas Islam Nachlas Goyim. Hashem told his nation the power of his deeds in order to give them the inheritance of the nations. What does that mean? She'im, that if, and obviously when Rashi says if, it's not just if, but when. The nations of the world will say to the Jewish people, Listim atem, you're robbers. Shekvashtem artzis shiva goyim, you conquerors. You stole the land of the nations, something which they came to us throughout history, and until now when we're holding at the threshold of Mashiach, they come again with the same strength, so to speak, of all the goyim, ragshu goyim, they're all shaking, but yegu rik, it's emptiness because Hashem laughs and mocks them, Yeshev Hashemayim Yitzchak. What do they say? You're robbers, you stole our land, you stole our country, you stole our world. What do we answer to them? Heim oimrim lahem, we say to the nations of the world. Kol ha'aretz shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Look in the Bible. The beginning of the Bible, how does it start? Bereshis bara elikim es hashamayim v'saaretz. Hashem created the heaven and earth. The earth, the heaven, the entire world belongs to Hashem. Hu bra, he created it and he decided who should get it. When he wanted to, he gave it to them, and when he wanted to, he took it from them and gave it to us. And that's why it's all Hashem, and that's why Hashem began with Bereshis. Let's understand it a little bit deeper in our own Avodah. Let's start with the idea of HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem. A Jew is supernatural. A Jew is above nature. I'll tell two stories. A story that I heard from a bacher or it was told over to me as it was related by a bacher who went on Mivtzaim for Purim and went to a prison for Purim or Sukkot, whenever it was. He went on Mivtzaim to a prison. It was in there's prisons in upstate in New York near the border of Canada. So actually they send Bachrim from Canada, from Montreal, and they go over the border. It's American prisons. And he sees there, as is very often by as they call it, the blue-collar prisons, and there's a lot of Jews there for various reasons. And he meets one Jew, actually from Montreal, who was caught smuggling over the border, and he was put in prison in the United States. And this Jew says to him, he says, yeah, I went to my Rebbe, and he told me don't do it, and I didn't listen, I did it, and here I am sitting in prison. So the Lubavitcher Bacher, he looks at him, he says, I don't understand. You went to your Rebbe told you not to do it, why did you do it? And so he says, you Lubavitchers, you think that every Rebbe is like the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and that everyone therefore listens to every Rebbe like the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He says, I want to tell you a story which expresses what it means, the amount of simple faith that a simple Jew has in the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He says, I grew up in Crown Heights. Must have been back in the 50s, the 60s. That must have been in the 60s when there was it was a lot of crime going on, and the Rebbe, as everyone knows, spoke by the Fabrengens time and again that people shouldn't run away from the Shchuna, and that Hashem sends the brachas over there, and that when you run away, you're actually putting other Jews in danger, etc., etc. So he says, but we didn't live on Kingston Avenue. We lived in more in the non-Jewish neighborhood. He says, my father wasn't a Chabadnik. He was a Holocaust survivor from Poland, a Polish Chassid. And he said there was another person also who lived in the same area as us, in the same street, who was also a Polish Jew. And we both lived there, and things were getting bad and from worse to worse. Now, my father, he was a wise man. He wasn't a Chabad Chassid, but he knew you don't start up with a big tzaddik. And so he decided it's impossible. We can't live here. It's too much crime. But he knows that the Rebbe is pushing not to move away. So he went into Yechidus by the Rebbe to notify the Rebbe in order to get this permission to leave, but more to notify the Rebbe that he can't do it. So he went into the Rebbe Yechidus and he says, I can't do this anymore. And so the Rebbe said to him, in your neighborhood, right nearby, you're basically your next door neighbor, he has a grocery store. Also, like he said, a Polish Yid who has a grocery store. And this grocery store, he says, if you move away, what's he going to do? Where's he make his panos? He can't just close his grocery store and leave. So for him, you have to stay. But he says to the Rebbe, but what about the crime? And the Rebbe says, I promise you, you'll live there, you'll be fine, you'll be safe. No, the Rebbe said he promises. So not only did my father stay there, but he went over to this other Jew and he said, by the way, I want to tell you what happened. I went into the Rebbe, and because of you, because the Rebbe cares about your parnasa, he told me I have to stay. But he said he promises that we'll be safe. He says, I would bike to school every day. One day I come back, I'm biking back from school, and I see police cars outside of this grocery store of this other Jew. So I went in to see what's happening. So as I see this Jew standing there, he looks completely calm. And I can see behind the counter, there's like these cans. Cans are more expensive things, so you keep them behind the counter, behind the cash register. And there's bullet holes. There's like the juice pouring out of the cans from the bullet holes. And the police are there, and they're talking to this Jew. He's calm. And he asked him, what happened? He says, two guys came with guns, and they said, Give us all your money. So the police said, so what did you say? I said, no. So what did they do? They said, we'll shoot. What did you say? Go ahead. So what happened? They shot. And they continued to shoot. He says, look behind me. And what happened then? They finished their bullets. And so they ran away. And that's why I called the police. The police look at him. They say, 1 second. What's going on over here? You look calm. And you're standing there and a guy says they'll shoot. And they shoot. And you just continue standing there like nothing happened. How do you do that? And he says, what do you mean? The Lubavitcher Rebbe said everything will be fine. That we'll be safe. I have nothing to be afraid of. That concept, that emunah pshuta, that simple faith that a Jew has, that the Rebbe says everything will be fine, everything will be fine. That's a chedesh hazeh lachem. That's the way a Jew stands beyond nature. He's in a world where they come with guns, in a world where they're shooting at him. And yet in that world, he's not afraid of anything because he's connected to a higher space, like the famous story that we all know that the Rebbe Rashab heard in the Shtibel in Vienna, that the Meirel of Mishlan used to go every morning to the mikveh, and in order to go to the mikveh, he used to have to go over a hill, and in the winter was icy and snowy, so everybody used to go the long way around, but Ramiro would go straight. There were a bunch of young people in town who didn't believe in miracles, they didn't believe in Rebbes. They said, it can't be he's an old man, he manages to go, for sure we can do it, we're young people. And they tried to go over that mountain, and they fell, and they tzamazik themselves, they ended up in the hospital with broken bones, etc. One of the young guys his father was a supporter, a big chassid of Ramiro. So Ramiro came to visit him in the hospital. And the guy looks at Ramiro and says, look, Rebbe, between us, I know we don't believe in this miracle stuff, in this Rebbe's stuff. How do you do it? And the mayor says it's a simple thing. If you're connected above, you don't fall below. Meirel is zugebunden neben, der fällt nicht unten. Meirel is connected above, he doesn't fall below. That's the idea of a Jew that's connected above. He's connected to a supernatural idea of a chedesh hazeh lachem, and it's the same in Avodah. A Jew, yes, I have a yetzer hara. Yes, I have a struggle, a constant struggle, but I'm connected to something higher. I'm connected to Rebbe. I don't even give him a space. Then we have another world. It's the world of Bereshis bar Elikim. Elikim is Tzimtzum. The Eibishter created a world. He created a natural world. A world where there's wars. A world where there's struggles. And in that world, the question is, can we connect in that world also? A story. There was a girl who came from a Chabad family, and she began to go off, and with time she went more and more off, and she started dropping one mitzvah after the other. And her parents pushed her, please do one thing. We will arrange for you a yichidus. Go into the Rebbe at least in yichidus. She says, no, I'm not going to the Rebbe. What do you want from me? And they pushed, and finally she agreed, okay, I'm going to go to the Rebbe. But she said, I'm going to go to the Rebbe on my terms. So she comes into yichidus, and she sits down, and she pulls a cigarette out of her pocket. Now, self-understood that as a girl, a Chabad girl, or anyone sitting in front of the Rebbe, she willed herself to do it, but her hands were shaking so hard that she couldn't manage to light the match, to light the cigarette. So she's standing there with her hands shaking. And the Rebbe pulled out a match from his drawer, lit the match, and lit the cigarette for her. Now you can understand what her reaction was later and the whole story. That's a different story. That's a story of Bereshis bar Elikim, of a world of tests, of a yetzer hara, of a world where we're involved, where we're part of it, where we don't know how to deal with it. There's a story of a woman when she lived in Montreal, and we're talking in the 1940s, the tough shins. And her family came from the alte shtetl, and they came to Montreal. She was a very strong-willed and a very frum girl, etc., as a young girl. And then, unfortunately, her father passed away, and she had to make a parnasa for the whole family, because she had to become the sole breadwinner. Her mother wasn't able to, for whatever reason, and she had to become the breadwinner for the family. So she was a very strong-willed girl, and she began to work. She went out to work and to find money, etc. Very quickly, she realized that if I don't work on Shabbos, I'm not going to manage to work. I'm not going to be able to support the family, which I have to support now. And so, unfortunately, she started to work on Shabbos. And from that, it continued. Once Shabbos is the basis of a Jew. And Shabbos, sometimes after Shabbos, everything else began to deteriorate. But in her heart, she remained a believer, strongly connected to the Eibusher, to Yiddishkeit. But unfortunately, she felt guilty all her life why she was not keeping the mitzvahs. When Lubavitch came to Montreal, which is, that's in the mid-1940s, it must be, that the Tamimim came after the war, the beginning of the 1940s, so she must have been even before that. And she was already, by that time, she was very, very, extremely wealthy. She owned a lot of factories, businesses, whatever it was. And so Lubavitch came, they opened a yeshiva, etc. She right away felt the connection, the neshama connection of just supporting and giving always money to support the yeshiva, etc. And one time they convinced her to go visit the Frierdiker Rebbe. This is already Tafshin Ches, Tafshin Zayin, 1947, 48, when the Frierdiker Rebbe already wasn't speaking so clearly. You couldn't hear him clearly. She came to the Frierdiker Rebbe, it was before Rosh Hashanah, I think, and the Frierdiker Rebbe started giving her brachas and brachas and brachas. And she was feeling extremely uncomfortable, like as if I don't deserve this. And finally she says, Rebbe, stop! And the Frierdiker Rebbe says, why should I stop? I'm giving you brachas. And she says, because I'm not frum. And the Frierdiker Rebbe said to her, frum? Who knows who's frum, who's not frum? Only the Eibishter knows who's frum. There's sometimes a situation where, yes, we're in the world, we're in the struggles, and yet still there's that connection. But where does that connection come from? And the Rebbe tells us that this is the idea that there's two aspects. There's a Jew the way he's above the world. Simple faith, there's nothing, he's not dealing with the world. He's in the world, but he's above the world. That's a chedesh hazel lachem. Then there's a Jew the way he's inside the world, dealing with all the issues, with all the struggles of the world. And we were told that the Torah should have started with a chedesh hazel lachem, and as Chassidus explains the machshava, the pnimius. The inner essence of a Jew is that a Jew is always above the world. And that's why even when we're in the world, even when we're in a place where the Goyim are saying listim atem, and we're Goyishkeit, and where the Yetzer Hara is saying you're a robber, it belongs to me. Even there we can say, no, this world too, its inner true essence is the Eibishter's, and therefore it belongs to him, and we're really connected to him. That comes when a person connects to the Rebbe, even when it's a hard time. One last story which happened with me a couple of years ago here in South Africa. For various reasons, I had issues with my visa, and I overstayed my visa. And I had to go travel somewhere. I asked the Rebbe, should I go there? And the answer was, Trach gut wird sein gut. Okay, the Rebbe says, Trach gut wird sein gut. I'm standing in line. As I'm standing in line, I'm struggling with myself. On one hand, the Rebbe said, Trach gut wird sein gut. And I'm trying to think positive, to know it's all good. On the other hand, what if? I mean, they're going to ban me from the country for 10 years. What am I going to do then? And that's why I'm standing in line, working and trying to overcome that struggle until finally I come to the desk where there's the agent, the person over there for the passport to control. And he looks at my passport and he says, I have to give you a 10-year stamp. You overstayed. He said, yeah, but please. And then he looks at my passport. This was at a time there was a forest fire in Canada, and a lot of countries, including South Africa, sent firefighters there. He looks, he sees a Canadian passport. He says, you know what, pray for our firefighters and you can go. It was the idea that if I had just been above the world, he wouldn't have even stopped me. But yet sometimes even when we're in the world and when we have struggles and when we have to fight to have that faith, but when we connect to the Rebbe, he gives us that power to overcome it. And that's the idea of birthdays. My time's running up, but that's the idea of birthdays. The Rebbe says, what's a birthday? There is a spiritual birthday, a chassidish birthday, a holy time when a person gets an aliyah, when a person chazers a maimer and makes a achlata. That's the fact. My neshama came to the world for a purpose. Then there's the physical birthday, sitting and celebrating with friends, making a party for what? Because I was born. How did Rabbi Yisrael Friedman used to say, Rebbe, I was born, give me $1. He used to tell us, like by a fabreng and laugh at us. We're going by the Rebbe. Rebbe, here I am, give me something. But the Rebbe said, no, now we can take even the party and the birthday cake. Take that physical existence, bring a lakus into it as well. And Mitzvah Hashem, the Eibusher should help. We should have finally this galus of Mashiach, which is bringing a lakus into the world. By Hibayim Hashmini. We're above nature, and yet this is the time when we can bring a lakus into the world. Today on Chafei Adar, we should have this galus of Mashiach. The whole world should see the truth in the world. In the physical world, that's Kol Aretz Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything belongs to the Eibusher, and we belong to the Eibusher, and He's take us out of Golos right now, l'chaim, l'chaim.